Hey everyone, Chad J. Willett, the host of the web TV show Smash the Box, where we're all about mindsets, developing a creative mindset and execution. And who better to bring in than my friend and colleague, my guest, Mr. Joe Bishara, who has smashed the box in his own way. And that's the whole goal of the show, is to bring people in who have smashed the box in their own industry. My friend, Mr. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Absolutely. Joe, we have 11 minutes, 11 seconds, so we'll get right to it. Mindsets. And Joe, I've talked to you about this earlier. I'm very intrigued, man. And viewers out there who don't know, back in March when this pandemic started, I've told Joe off the record, I feel like he was a visionary. He's done multiple virtual camps in Dublin and New Albany. I feel like he was ahead of the curve. And I'm not just saying that since he's my friend, but it's the truth. He's done more virtual productions than anyone I know. And I guess I'd love to start there, Joe. I guess, just for viewers out there, how do you idea generate? Even back in March, thinking about the virtual, taking Dublin, New Albany virtually, just anything you can share with our viewers about your ability to idea generate and kind of come up with these ideas would be great.
Yeah. So I'm going to start you off with a quote, and it actually leads into how I think. I'm a really big fan of Simon Sinek, and one of his quotes that really stuck with me once the stay-at-home order went into effect was, "People don't fear change. People fear sudden change. People fear revolutions, but people don't fear evolutions." And so I saw this as a golden opportunity. I am new at both of these positions, both working for the city of Dublin and founding New Albany Youth Theatre. And so I looked at this as a tremendous opportunity. I saw a lot of people that were basically in fear mode. And I went, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to see this as a golden opportunity to advertise or generate awareness about both of these brands. And so from there, I said, well, how can I do that? And then I did some research. I identified some virtual products that were new on the market. And I said, well, we're going to do this. We're going to try this. We're going to see how it goes. I wasn't concerned about profit or loss. I saw this all as a tremendous marketing opportunity to generate awareness about these two brands.
Got it. That's very interesting. Can you elaborate on that, Joe? Because you talk about fear, and I speak around the country and, smashing the box. And I talk about 4 walls of the mental box, and fear is always the biggest one. It paralyzes people. It paralyzes companies. How do you deal with the fear? And let's be specific. If businesses are listening, the fear maybe of losing money, right? Or, with virus or lawsuits, all that, all the fear that all of us are just consumed with: lawsuits, virus, losing money, not doing things correct. I guess I would love your perspective on dealing with fear just in general, and running a business and running 2 theaters.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, safety was at the forefront of my mind, because I said, look, people are going to need an outlet, but it still needs to be checking all the boxes in regards to safety. And so what we did was we followed all the guidelines that I had unique access to through working for the city of Dublin, and I implemented them for the city of Dublin programming, and then we copy and pasted those into what we were going to provide New Albany Youth Theatre. So what we did was we said, okay, look, we're going to go virtual with all of this. And because of that, we said, okay, well, there's a series of criteria that's going to follow. We're not going to be able to spend as much time with the kids. So that means that we're going to have to probably lower the entry point as far as price is concerned. But again, I'm not spending money on marketing the initiative. I'm not spending money on creating programs for the initiative, meaning like literal physical programs. I'm not worried about house management. I'm not worried about actually renting a space. Yeah. So a lot of expenses went down. And then because it was virtual and because there's online fatigue, you're going, wow, I'm reducing the amount of time that I'm spending with the kids, which means I can technically work in both spots versus being stuck in one with an in-person experience. So my fear went away when I really just broke it down to its lowest common denominator. I literally looked at my budget lines and said, well, let's consider what this line means in a virtual world. Let's consider what this line means in a virtual world. And then my fear dissipated, because I went, worst comes to worst, I'm significantly reducing my expenses. And so I don't have any fear associated with this because I've already considered every single part of the whole.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. So I love the lowest common denominator. And you did that with your budget, got the number, reduced it to the simplest form, and then started working on your virtual programs. That's great. And that leads me into, you and I were talking a little off screen, Joe, dealing with no people, right? And on this show, we just want to cut right to it, cut right to the chase, right? And be honest with people watching. all of us have no people, managers, supervisors, directors, right? Even if we report to an array of people, if we're an independent contractor or a business person. And I told you off the screen, again, I would love your perspective on dealing with no people, dealing with resistance, whatever job, right? We all have someone we report to in some capacity. And again, tying it back to the pandemic and the virus and all the concerns and fear, right? We keep going back to fear, all the fear out there. Can you give viewers any insight into your mindset when you deal with no people? Like, even take your lowest common denominator. You had the numbers, you reduced it down to that, but you and I know you're still going to run into no people who, for whatever reason, are going to object.
Right. And I'm very fortunate that, again, the city of Dublin, instead of saying no, they'd say why, or they'd say how. And I'm really blessed to be here. And I'd say the same thing for the new Albany Youth Theatre Board. I wasn't really getting any no's. I was like, okay, well, how is that going to work? And so to me, it's identifying what the number is, making sure you're providing clarity for what that number really represents. And again, it's looking for an infinite mindset. Okay, so there's the finite mindset, which I think a lot of people who are no people have, and it's opportunism, it's selfishness, and it's panic. All right. But with an infinite mindset, you're going to embrace generosity and selflessness and calm caution. Okay. And calm caution is really, to me, one of the most important ingredient, because calm caution is the numbers and the reasoning behind the numbers. And so I just made sure that I was able to say what that number was, explain where that number came from, and then again, tie it back to the type of social impact we're going to be able to have. All right. Because ultimately, that's what the true purpose of arts are, to create complete human beings who are critical thinkers, who have curious minds and can lead productive lives. And as long as you can tie all that in, it's the why, the where, the how, I think the no people run out of no's.
Awesome. I was just taking some notes as you were talking, and I love you, Joe, mentioning you're not dealing with no people, you're dealing with why people. That is, and you and I know that's a completely different mindset. If you and I are talking to people who have a why mindset, why are you coming up with this idea, right? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do a virtual tour? That's much different than no. We can't do it. We don't have the money. We don't have the expertise. We don't have the tutelage, right? Whatever. We don't have the platform. I think that's for viewers out there, hopefully grasp on, that's a very important distinction. A no mindset and a why mindset. And you're dealing with why. That's very well said. Let me take you let's kind of pivot, if we could, Joe, into execution. So you come up with these ideas, and I keep going back to March. Like I said, you're one of the first people I talked to in March, right when this pandemic hit. Before before blue widespread.
Right.
And you were coming up with these virtual programs, and I know you came up with these ideas, and you started looking for plays, both for your new Albany Youth Theatre and the city of Dublin. You started recognizing plays, I guess. So you came up with these ideas, you generated these ideas, you presented them to your board, supervisors, whoever you needed to present them to. And I guess what was how did you take that next step? Because so many viewers tell me that it's the execution, right? They can come up with ideas, they can be in a meeting room, they can be in a boardroom, right? They can have $1 million ideas every week, at least once a week, once a month, right? But it's from that idea to the execution, something breaks down. Either they have no people, not why people. Either they don't have the money, they don't have the finance. Fear holds them back. So could you walk us through how you actually execute it? I think you said you've done, 7 virtual productions now?
Yeah, been pretty busy. We've done, I think, 7 separate virtual productions. One of them I actually had the benefit of repeating. So that made it a little bit easier. But it's people. It's identifying not only having wonderful how and why people that you report to, but it's also how and why people for implementation. And, you got to believe in the people and the product. So you can have a great product, but if you don't have the people there that can really drive that home, then the product is nothing. Or if you have great people and not a great product, it's the same thing. They go hand in hand. And that's something that I was taught very early on by my father. My father worked at the same corporation for 30 years. And I asked him, and I said, how did you do that? And he said, Joe, it's people and product. It's people and product, and it's hand in hand. And it's the same thing with smaller organizations. Yes, there's a moniker, but in the Midwestern United States, the moniker only goes as far as the individuals that represent it. And so I was very, very fortunate that I have a really great team here that helps me with implementation at the Abbey Theatre of Dublin on behalf of the city of Dublin. And our staff is small but ridiculously experienced at New Albany Youth Theatre. And so it's believing in, they need to understand not only the how and the why, but they also need to understand what that means as far as the step-by-step process for execution.
That's it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. I wrote down the word belief. Is that the key? The belief you and your team have to believe, have to take that leap of faith in order to ever execute. To execute those 7 plays, if you boil down to the words belief.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so think about what we ask the kids, what we hope kids will derive from what we're doing, even big kids, even adults. The top 10 skills that you're supposed to get from the arts: creativity, confidence, problem solving, perseverance, focus, nonverbal communication, receiving constructive feedback, collaboration, dedication, accountability. You've got to create that culture not only for your students, but you've got to create that culture for the people in your employ, your team. If you have that, then it's going downhill. It's all going downhill versus the uphill climb. It's all about perspective and what you're creating for a culture.
That's awesome. And just for viewers out there, if I boil it down, what Joe's saying, it's creating this culture and this belief, getting all your team members to believe in the product. Everything you're saying, Joe. Yeah, you believe in your kids. You believe in your team. You said you have an experienced staff in Dublin, and that belief that you have in them allows execution to happen.
Right.
But if there's not belief, if you and I don't have belief in our team members, our instructors, our teachers, whoever it is, you and I know those ideas will never be executed.
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect. And it gets us toward the end of the show. One of my favorite parts, Joe, as you know, well, you may or may not know, but I'm going to throw you a quote. I give guests 30 seconds to improvise. The quote ties into today's talk, everything you and I talk about: mindsets, barriers, execution. And the quote comes from Shakespeare. I'll give you 30 seconds. This is part of Smashing the Box live and improvising, which I know you do very well. And the quote is from Shakespeare: "Things won are done. Joy's soul lies in the doing." Let me repeat it for you, and I'll let you riff on it. Things won are done. Joy's soul lies in the doing. Mr. Joe, you have 30 seconds.
Well, I love that quote. I think it ties into a lot of what both you and I have been going through trying to implement something. You've got to be able to derive joy from it. And that joy is infectious. You need to share that joy of whatever your project is. If you believe in the project and you believe in trying to instill the key goals of that project in the people that you are working with or you are working for, then that's a win. That's a win. Okay, like what I love about working with youth artists or performing for youth audiences is that they will let you know if they like something or if they don't like something immediately. That means that they've got the smell factor. They can tell whether you, if you are on stage, are being immediate and authentic. And that's what Swan has done to me, is going, look, you've got to believe in what it is you're trying to offer the community, whether it's a virtual production, whether it's a virtual class, and you've got to have people who are passionate and enthusiastic about sharing the goals that are part of that. And so that's what that quote means to me. And that's part of the ABCs of me. So that's a great quote, Chad.
I appreciate it. That is awesome. And we're wrapping up the show, Smash the Box web TV show. And I just want to thank Joe, and I got some closing words. And Joe, if you have anything closing for the audience, we'll sign off here. And my closing thoughts for anyone watching is very simple. The man next to me, if you guys just heard, he kind of riffed on the Shakespeare quote. The man next to me, and I mean this genuinely, I've known him for a number of years. It's a true passion and a genuineness he has for his students. And I mean it. He's told me over and over again, we've collaborated on projects with our different companies. And he's told me over and over again, it doesn't matter if it's my company or his company, he wants the students to have the best experience possible. And I mean that, Joe. It's an incredible compliment to you. It's not the dollar, it's not the bottom line. I mean, he runs a business, he worries about it. But I promise you, in the end, that is what matters to him. It's the student. And that's I can't give that compliment to a lot of instructors, academies, different organizations across the state of Ohio that I know, but I can give it to him. And it's true. And I say that because I think that's partly a big reason why he's able to smash the box, both in Dublin and New Albany. So, Joe, it's great. It's a pleasure to have you on here. Any final thoughts for our audience as we wrap up?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, Chad. And yeah, I'm very passionate about it, and I think that's why we get along so well. We have this shared goal of putting everyone that we interact with in the best possible position to succeed, and that's my North Star. And so it's an honor for me to create art, to teach the art of clarity, and I think that's why we get along so well. And so I just thank you for the opportunity to speak about it today.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks on the next Smash the Box web TV show. Our guest is going to be Mr. Scott Shelton, Scotty Boombox as we call him, and I'll be putting more stuff on social media. Thanks, Joe.